This unattached gentleman represents the gravest menace to society. At 35, he's accomplished, entering a family gathering with his life well-ordered, a flourishing career, a robust bank balance, and respected friendships. Yet, in the eyes of those around him, one element is conspicuously absent. Quote zero, they inquire. Intriguingly, he doesn't react with defensiveness or offer excuses. His simple reply, "I don't need to," profoundly unsettles people. It makes them genuinely uneasy. Why does an individual who sees no necessity for matrimony provoke such societal alarm? Because his very existence shatters the conventional wisdom regarding what constitutes a complete man. Consider this. From childhood, men are instilled with a straightforward directive: marry, settle down, find a wife. That is the essence of true manhood. But what if this imperative isn't truly about your personal happiness? What if its purpose is to ensure your predictability? In reality, a married man is a controlled man. He bears responsibilities, financial obligations, and a family to support. He cannot impulsively resign his job to explore the world, nor can he readily embrace risks. He conforms. However, the bachelor who genuinely feels no need for marriage poses a threat. Not due to animosity towards women or relationships, but because he embodies freedom. And freedom is infectious. When other men observe his prosperity without a spouse, they begin to ponder unsettling questions. Quote 2. The renowned philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of individuals who forge their own principles rather than adhering to societal norms, terming them the underscore. Quote underscore. 3 underscore. These individuals require no external validation to feel worthy. Furthermore, psychologist Carl Jung discovered that when a man genuinely comprehends himself, including his shadow aspects, he achieves self-sufficiency. He has no reliance on another for his wholeness. This individual isn't against marriage. He advocates for choice. Not the superficial dichotomy of marry or be a failure, but the profound choice between marrying out of desire or remaining single because one is already whole. Such a choice terrifies a world structured upon your perceived dependencies. Are you prepared to uncover why? Then continue watching. By the conclusion, your perspective on marriage will not merely shift. Your feelings towards it will transform, potentially altering your life's trajectory from this moment forward. Prepare for a revelation. You've been conditioned to believe you are flawed. Reflect on it. Since childhood, what recurring message did you absorb? You require your other half. You are incomplete without someone. A true man settles down. But what if this is precisely the belief they wish you to hold? Nietzsche labeled this slave morality, the notion that you are inherently inadequate and require external confirmation to be complete. It's truly ingenious. If you perceive yourself as incomplete, you will devote your entire life to bridging that perceived gap. And predictably, a man relentlessly seeking completion is a manipulable man. The latent truth is that a component of your psyche, which Jung termed the underscore quote underscore 9 underscore, represents your intrinsic feminine energy. Society instructs you to project this onto women rather than cultivating it within yourself. Why? Because when you integrate this aspect of your being, you attain psychological wholeness. You cease to require anyone else to complete you. The man who uncovers this becomes dangerous, not violently, but psychologically. He cannot be shamed into marriage, guilted into settling down, or manipulated through loneliness. Observe the reaction when you assert that marriage is not essential for your completeness. People grow angry, defensive, and immediately enumerate your supposed errors. However, what is truly happening is that you are challenging their entire worldview. If you can achieve completeness without marriage, what implications does that hold for their choices? The reality is that by discontinuing the pursuit of external validation and instead cultivating internal fortitude, you evolve from someone who requires relationships to someone who chooses them. And choice, that is their true apprehension. For a man who chooses from a position of strength can also choose to depart. And that profoundly threatens a system designed to maintain your dependence. Do you desire a secret that will provoke your anger? Your sensations of incompleteness are not innate. They are fabricated. A colossal, multi-billion-dollar industry thrives on your perceived inadequacy without a wife. The wedding industry alone commands $300 billion globally, but its influence extends further. Real estate companies target couples due to their higher spending. Insurance companies devise family plans because married men acquire more comprehensive coverage. The entire consumer economy is predicated on the idea that you must provide for another. Yet what is extraordinary is that the man who sees no need for marriage discerns this manipulation with clarity. He comprehends that a substantial portion of his expenditures was driven by the compulsion to authenticate his worth as a provider. The lavish car, the spacious flat, the opulent dining experiences, these were all for show, not born from genuine inclination. Nietzsche spoke of a quote, "10 not dominion over others, but mastery over oneself." When you channel that drive from impressing others to cultivating your own being, something extraordinary unfolds. You cease to consume driven by insecurity and begin to live from a place of authenticity. Reflect on your last significant purchase. Was it a true desire, or did you believe it would enhance your appeal to potential partners? The individual who has unified their internal world, what Jung termed, quote, 11, bases decisions on their authentic values rather than contrived necessities. This deeply unsettles the economic framework, because if men stopped acquiring things to charm women, ceased upgrading their lifestyles to appear as capable providers, or consuming to alleviate a sense of incompleteness, the entire economy would be compelled to reorient itself around genuine human wants instead of perceived needs. This is why they persistently tell you that you are lacking. Your vulnerability is their revenue stream. Here's a concept that is rarely discussed. You possess a darker aspect, and society is apprehensive of what transpires when you embrace it. Jung referred to this as the, quote, 12, all the facets of yourself you've been instructed to conceal. Your self-interest, your independence, your unwillingness to conform, your inclination to prioritize yourself. Most men spend their lives evading these inherent traits. They enter marriage partly to demonstrate their virtue and capacity for self-sacrifice. But what if I propose that embracing your shadow is the path to wholeness? The man who doesn't require marriage has accomplished something most men never do. He has confronted his darker nature with honesty. He has recognized that indeed he can be self-centered. Yes, he values his autonomy, and yes, he isn't always inclined to sacrifice for others. Instead of being ashamed of these qualities, he has assimilated them. Here's the remarkable part. When you stop evading your shadow, you no longer require external validation. You're no longer feigning virtue to prove your deservingness of affection. You are simply complete. There's another element to this enigma. Jung discussed the feminine energy inherent in every man. Many men project this onto women, believing, quote, 13. However, when you integrate your entire self, you achieve psychological wholeness. You don't need a woman to access your emotional depths, your intuition, or your capacity for nurturing. You have cultivated these attributes within yourself. This is what Nietzsche meant by amor fati, love of one's fate. You embrace your complete essence, including the aspects society deemed incorrect. And when you achieve this, something profound occurs. You become impervious to manipulation. Society cannot shame you into marriage because you are not ashamed of being single. They cannot coerce you into providing because you feel no guilt about prioritizing yourself. You have attained psychological liberation. And that freedom is infectious. Other men observe you and begin to ponder, quote, 15. Envision two distinct archetypes of men. The domesticated man, structured, predictable, secure, possessed of a mortgage, a spouse, and a 5-year strategy, what Nietzsche called Apollonian, representing order and self-restraint. The wild man, unpredictable, innovative, unfettered, capable of relocating cities on impulse, reorienting careers, and taking chances. Dionysian. Embodying chaos and authentic expression. Which one do you suppose society favors? Here's the crux. Marriage is engineered to transform Dionysian men into Apollonian ones. It steers your untamed energy into socially acceptable channels. Your inventiveness is directed toward providing. Your autonomy is reshaped into responsibility. But what becomes of the man who spurns this metamorphosis? He retains his edge. He remains formidable. Not violently threatening, but unpredictably unbound. Consider this. Could you resign from your job tomorrow and journey the globe? Could you entirely alter your life without considering anyone else's needs? Can you access your creative turbulence at will? If you are married, likely not. And that precisely is the point. The unmarried man who has achieved what Jung called individuation has accomplished something extraordinary. He has synthesized both facets of himself. He can be methodical when necessary and untamed when advantageous, accountable when prudent and defiant when imperative. A refined gentleman at a dinner, a warrior in commerce. Nurturing with companions, yet ruthless with adversaries. He is not confined to either extreme. Society fears this synthesis because it cannot anticipate or govern it. The married man often loses access to his Dionysian nature. He becomes exclusively Apollonian, safe, foreseeable, regulated. But the integrated bachelor has preserved his innate wildness while cultivating his wisdom. This adaptability renders him incredibly potent. And power that cannot be governed is power that endangers the established order. Here's a question that could reframe everything. Who determined that marriage is essential for a complete life? Ponder it. Truly contemplate it. When considering the origins of criteria for male achievement, one might ask where these guidelines originate. They're typically instilled by parents, societal norms, religious doctrines, and media influences. Yet, what if these established rules are merely subjective viewpoints? Nietzsche once conceived of the, quote, 16 not as an inherently superior being, but as an individual who forges personal values rather than simply adopting inherited ones. The man who finds marriage unnecessary exemplifies this very possibility. His stance isn't a condemnation of marriage itself, but a rejection of its perceived indispensability. Do you grasp the distinction? Most men approach marriage with the mindset, I ought to marry because that's what successful men do. In contrast, the value-creating man inquires, does marriage genuinely contribute to my personal growth and desires? The choice might be the same, but the underlying framework is profoundly different. This divergence is precisely what unnerves many, for if personal values can dictate marital perspectives, how many other societal mandates are merely suggestions? Jung's concept of individuation centers on becoming one's authentic self, rather than conforming to societal expectations. Through this process, individuals can assess every life decision, including marriage, through the lens of their true nature, liberated from social conditioning. Envision a world where every man posed the question, would I willingly choose this marriage if I were condemned to relive it eternally? This encapsulates Nietzsche's eternal recurrence test. Make choices as if you will repeat them for all time. How many marital unions would withstand such a rigorous examination? The man who doesn't require marriage has already navigated this test. He has soberly appraised his life and concluded that he would rather face solitude than acquiesce to anything less than a genuine bond. This perspective isn't anti-marriage, it champions personal autonomy. When you encounter a man who has sculpted his own values, adheres to his own benchmarks, and defines success by his own metrics, you are witnessing a rare phenomenon, authentic human liberty. This freedom is so potent, so alluring, so motivational, that it compels others to scrutinize their own life choices. This is why he is perceived as a threat. He isn't dismantling society, he is revealing the viability of alternative ways of living. A quick thought. How much of your daily existence is mere performance? Jung differentiated between the persona, the facade presented publicly, and the authentic self. Many men invest so much energy in performing masculinity that they lose sight of their actual aspirations. The persona of masculinity dictates that real men marry, provide, and make sacrifices for others. But what if your authentic self yearns for something divergent? The intriguing aspect is that the man who sees no need for marriage has undertaken the internal work necessary to distinguish these two facets of his being. He has confronted the profound question, am I living my own life or merely society's script? Most men marry to fulfill the persona, believing it to be their obligation without ever truly asking if it aligns with their genuine desires. The individuated man has traversed what Jung termed the dark night of the soul, periods of isolation and profound self-reflection that most people meticulously avoid through incessant activity, endless relationships, and constant distraction. And through that crucible of introspection, he has unearthed an extraordinary truth. He can achieve completion without external validation. Ponder this. When was your last significant life decision made solely on your own volition, free from the weight of others' expectations? The authentic man operates from his true desires, not from artificially constructed needs. He might indeed choose marriage, but it would stem from a position of strength, not vulnerability, from wholeness, not neediness. The foundations of everything you were taught about life's mechanics are crumbling. Nietzsche foresaw this disintegration when he proclaimed, "God is dead." His assertion wasn't about religion. It referred to the collapse of traditional authoritative structures that once dictated how individuals should live. This erosion is nowhere more apparent than in the institution of marriage. Your grandfather married out of perceived necessity, social pressure, economic imperatives, religious obligations. The choice was effectively made for him. But you belong to the first generation truly empowered to choose. And that genuine choice deeply unsettles society. Consider this. When marriage transforms from an imperative to an option, from a necessity to a deliberate choice, when men can flourish without spouses, everything changes. The existing social order must reconfigure itself around entirely new tenets. Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, profound archetypal patterns that make certain behaviors feel inevitable. The archetypal frameworks that once imbued marriage with a sense of destiny are now dissolving. The man who doesn't require marriage is charting new courses, demonstrating that a meaningful life is attainable without traditional forms of validation. However, the profound truth emerging is this: the death of God in relationships does not signify the demise of love. Rather, it heralds the birth of conscious choice. When no longer driven by unconscious compulsions, by scripts inherited from past generations, or by societal programming, you gain the capacity to forge relationships entirely new to the old system. These are connections built on reciprocal growth instead of mutual reliance, bonds founded on deliberate choice rather than social obligation, partnerships that enrich life instead of merely completing it. The singleton who has reached this heightened awareness acts as a harbinger of fresh opportunities. He isn't dismantling the established order. Rather, he's unveiling the potential form of a novel world. This perspective is so compelling that it prompts others to reevaluate their fundamental assumptions about human connections. Consider this a revelation that will alter your self-perception. Genuine strength stems not from dominating others, but from achieving self-command. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power has been widely misinterpreted. It signifies not conquest, but the actualization of one's true nature, the articulation of one's intrinsic self, and the creation of personal values. The individual who opts out of traditional matrimony has unearthed this inherent power within himself. Ponder this. Which carries more weight? Requiring another to complete you, or finding completeness within yourself? Seeking external affirmation, or cultivating your intrinsic self-worth? Many men pursue influence through outward achievements, a superior career, greater wealth, an attractive spouse. Yet this is contingent power, reliant on elements beyond one's control. The self-actualized man has discovered a distinct kind of potency, the power of self-mastery. He has confronted his inner demons, those facets of himself that societal norms dictated he conceal. His self-interest, his autonomy, his defiance of conformity. Instead of repressing these traits, he has assimilated them. This integration fosters genuine might, not the compensatory bravado of those striving for validation, but the serene assurance of one who possesses complete self-knowledge. And here's the extraordinary part. Once you attain this self-mastery, your choices in relationships can originate from a position of abundance rather than scarcity, from wholeness rather than deficiency. You're not desperately searching for someone to complete you. You are sufficiently complete to share your existence with an individual who enriches it. What does it signify to be a man? The outdated definitions are crumbling, and society has yet to offer replacements. This generates what psychologists refer to as an identity crisis, leaving men uncertain of their expected roles. However, here's the astonishing truth. The man who consciously forgoes marriage has resolved this crisis. He has ascertained that masculinity isn't contingent on your interactions with others, but on your relationship with yourself. Conventional masculinity defined men by external functions. But what occurs when those roles no longer appeal to you? What happens when you don't need to be a provider to feel significant, or a protector to feel robust? You uncover a profound insight. Your core identity exists independently of social standing. Nietzsche termed this quote 25 shedding inherited identities to unearth your authentic essence. Jung referred to it as quote 26, the amalgamation of all aspects of oneself into a cohesive whole. The man who completes this process requires no societal approval to perceive his own value. He defines masculinity through internal attributes: strength of character, creative expression, awareness, genuineness, self-governance. And this is precisely what makes it potentially unsettling. When men realize they can be fulfilled without conforming to traditional accomplishments, they become impervious to manipulative tactics rooted in insecurity. This nascent masculine identity doesn't reject relationships, it transforms them. The bachelor who has achieved this metamorphosis serves as an exemplar for others grappling with issues of selfhood. He demonstrates that conventional masculine dilemmas can be resolved through introspection, not external accumulation, through self-knowledge, not social validation, through authenticity, not mere performance. Once this possibility becomes evident, you realize the question isn't quote 27, but quote 28. Here lies the pivotal moment. After assimilating all you've learned, after witnessing society's influence on your decisions, after grasping the distinction between authentic desire and conditioned behavior, what will your next step be? The man who has no personal need for marriage represents more than a personal preference. He is a living inquiry that challenges everyone in his vicinity. Are you wedded by genuine desire or by societal expectation? Are you seeking companionship from a place of strength or of lacking? Are you authoring your own life or adhering to society's script? These are not comfortable inquiries, but they are indispensable. The individuated man has cultivated Nietzsche's philosophy, the fortitude to be oneself, the readiness to live by genuine values rather than ingrained expectations. His authenticity doesn't compel you to adopt his choices, but it prompts you to make deliberate decisions rather than unconscious ones. He illustrates that partnership can be chosen from a position of strength, not frailty, from wholeness, not deficiency, from liberty, not obligation. And here is its power. When men begin scrutinizing their motives, questioning their needs, and uncovering their innate capacity for completeness, transformation ripples outwards. Not just for them, but for everyone. For authentic choices foster authentic relationships. Conscious men cultivate conscious partnerships. Integrated individuals forge healthy connections. An unmarried man who is content without the institution of marriage poses a subtle threat, not through societal destruction, but by exposing how deeply society relies on superficial decisions. His self-sufficient state prompts others to scrutinize their own existence, to differentiate between what they truly want and what has been dictated by societal norms, and to enter relationships based on personal strength, not insecurity. This kind of introspection has the potential to revolutionize the whole panorama of human interactions, opening up fresh avenues for genuine bonds rooted in deliberate decisions rather than involuntary urges. It fosters true inclinations instead of manufactured expectations, and personal autonomy over communal reliance. The pertinent inquiry is whether you possess the courage to unearth your true identity. Your lifespan is finite. Your decisions are exclusively yours. The essence of the matter isn't about whether you ought to marry or not. It's about whether your choices stem from your authentic self or from societal dictates. The man who feels no need for marriage has already made this fundamental choice. What will yours be?